For this backpacking trip, I chose, once again, to return to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. As most of you probably know, it is located on the borders between North Carolina and Tennessee. As usual, I looked for an area of the Smokies in which I had not hiked before, so I decided to focus on the area surrounding the Cosby Campground. I left early on Sabbath morning, and I enjoyed some beautiful scenery along the way, including a few wild turkeys. But finally, about 4 hours later, I came to the Cosby Campground. Upon reaching Cosby Campground Saturday morning, I started out on Low Gap Trail. I gained 2,000 feet in elevation over 2.8 miles to reach the Appalachian Trail. At that point, I descended 1,180 feet over the remaining 2.5 miles to reach Campsite 37. The next morning, I hiked a comparatively level 5.3 miles on Big Creek Trail to the Big Creek picnic grounds where my parents picked me up to return me to my car at Cosby. Well, we are here at the Cosby Campground, and beautiful area, less well-known, less traveled, less crowded corner of the Smokies. I have many memories from when I was much younger, and we used to come here quite a bit. But again, like Elkmont about a year ago, it's been a long time in coming, revisiting it. The unfortunate thing, apart from massive work being done on the interstate getting here, that slowed me down, is the fact that they don't tell you that there are no restroom facilities at all. None of any kind. Oh well. About 10:25, so a little late start, like an hour and a half later than I wanted to do it, but that's alright. Okay, we are going to send a little message back home, let them know we're heading out. No cell service in Cosby Campground area, so that means we have to use my trusty 66i. Let's take care of that menu. Yeah, down to messages, and fortunately I have a preset one just for this. Alright, poor GPS strength, send anyway. Yep. Hopefully we'll get some GPS before long. This is the Low Gap Trail that we're going to be following all the way through today's hike. All 5-point-something miles of it. It's going to cross over the Appalachian Trail and go down and head up over the ridge over Low Gap. Then we descend down Low Gap Trail on the other side, down into Walnut Bottom to the Campsite 37. What a beautiful start to the day. And we have already all kinds of gotta love the fiddleheads. Yeah, here are some flowers we have already. Well, we have our first stream crossing of the day. Just a nice gentle little one. Love the way the water sparkles. I think we can make it across without getting wet. And we bring ourselves right up here. We should be telling us we are, yes, on the Low Gap Trail. Indeed.
Nice little circuit, nature trail around Cosby Campground itself for those who want to stay local. Now, good news and bad news. By going Cosby over to Low Gap, we are going to do our elevation gain much more quickly. Because once you go over Low Gap, it's a longer, almost the main elevation change takes about twice the linear distance, so a little less at a time. So this way it's much steeper, and for those like myself who are trying to get back in shape, makes you work a little bit harder. And we have another spring flower. Not the Halbert. Let's see. I have to look that one up. And yeah, we have some more Christmas ferns here. We're already starting to get into all kinds of fun stuff. Okay, it looks like we have just reached the Low Gap Trail. There are several trails that leave Cosby. You know, they'll kind of come together and coalesce, and then they head off on Low Gap. So now I think we're hitting on Low Gap itself, and we will quit all these intersections until we get to the Appalachian. Yeah. So, just this for a little while. You can see as it's leaving camp, they have been nice enough to pave the entire route all the way up. Oh, no, I'm kidding. We're still on the edge of the campground. But we'll enjoy the smooth walking while it lasts. Yep, leaving the campground here. Lower Mount Camera Trail. That would be a fun one to do, but that's going to takes you on a loop around Mount Camera that's much more suited to a 2-night, as in 2 individual nights. I guess we'll just head on out Low Gap here. If there's one thing that I truly enjoy, and there's many of them that I truly enjoy, it is the way that the National Park Service in the Smokies has chosen to put these footbridges. They're rustic, they blend with the character. I love that. Absolutely love it. Besides, what's not to love? Man, wish I could look out at that every morning.
On the right is the Christmas fern, and on the left is either the marginal or intermediate fern, or I'm not sure, maybe the fragile.
Oh, we have yet more. These guys are really beautiful little flowers. And we also have some
Yellow trillium. I always love to see the trilliums. They are some of the most spectacular and brilliantly colored flowers out there. And here we have the lesser periwinkle, which is a beautiful little flower, just invasive, however. It's invaded a number of natural areas, including the Smoky Mountains. However, how can you compare to that white trillium, that crisp, white, blade-like petals with that stark contrast against the green and other colors behind it. Just absolutely beautiful.
Wow, we are still hitting all these intersections. I thought we'd left them, but we still have a... Oh, I see. We're following the Cosby Horse Trail out to hit Low Gap Trail. Okay, I thought we were on it already. My mistake. My mistake. That was the horse trail. And past this point, if you keep on going, looks like we're looking at Lower Mount Cameron Trail if we had continued on. But we hit this point and then we turn right here, going this direction to, I think we're finally on the Low Gap Trail proper. I think. That's all right. I'm not too worried because I know that as long as I stay on something that says Low Gap, I'll eventually hit Site 37. Should work out well. Nothing like the dappled sunlight. Well, I wasn't paying attention. Well, I was just paying attention down to the flowers where I was walking. I didn't look up and see the 3 white-tailed deer that were taken off in front of me. Snapped a quick picture of it with this. But we'll see if it came out or not. Hopefully we'll get another shot at that. Now here's an ever recognizable marker of spring. You can see the fiddleheads.
And of course, we've got the mayapple, and this next one with the brilliant white flower, the sweet white trim, just really beautiful. But the next one, I'm not really sure. Dwarf ginseng, maybe?
Okay, they did not go far. As you can see through the woods there, he's just walking on. Now, I don't want to disturb it because there's some hikers up in front. So I'll give the deer and the hikers time to mosey on. Okay. And finally meeting some of the last of the trails that come and connect Low Gap here from Cosby. I think this is the last one. Of course, I've been saying that for how many times now. Cosby Campground, we're only 4/10 of a mile out. So... we got more to go, don't we? About 5 miles more. Well, we are probably about, half a mile, maybe a mile up the switchbacks here heading to Low Pass, or Low Gap, I should say. But, man, the one thing I despise about going so steeply uphill is it shoves your heel against the back of your boot, and every time any twist will make it scrub and give you blisters.
Yes, what I should do is to put the moleskin on before I start hiking. And next time I'll probably do that.
You know, I'm beginning to think it might be the halbert.
And it was. I know I show the fiddleheads a lot, but they're just too pretty not to. And I love the moss, especially close up.
Okay, as you might imagine, we're about, half a mile or 3/10 of a mile from the top of the ridge, the pass, where we intersect with the Appalachian Trail. My phone is out of storage. So I had to sit down here, delete about 150 small video clips. So now there should be a little room. We're a little after 1 in the afternoon, and we're just about to hit the Appalachian Trail, I think. Okay, here we see some beautiful spring beauties.
These are some of the earliest spring flowers to come into bloom, and they're always so beautiful. Now, the longspur is another favorite of mine. It's just so unusual. Now, these are more common, but still also very pretty. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet or not, but I love this flower. I really like that delicate fringe on the petals. Very pretty. This one is the fringed phacelia. Okay, here I am just coming around the corner as I'm approaching the Appalachian Trail. Right at the intersection, the highest point of the hike. At this point, all my elevation gain's done. You can see I have the Cosby Knob Shelter one direction. You can see it's showing me the direction on down to the right to my campsite, but here's the Appalachian Trail. I could go either direction, but much as I'd like to, I went ahead and started down towards my campsite.
We are headed down Low Gap Trail towards campsite 37.
I really have come to enjoy the diversity in the club mosses of late. In this case, I love the flat cedar-like structure of one versus the more pine tree needle-like construction of the other. I'm not sure what happened to my sound here, but at this point I'm just heading on down from the Appalachian Trail, heading downhill, eventually towards my campsite, enjoying the change in the vegetation as I start losing elevation. Once again, we have a clip with no audio. I think at this point I was expounding upon the virtues of staying hydrated and some other bits of unforgettable wisdom, which I've forgotten. I love the delicate blues and purples of the phacelias that come out in early spring. On the other hand, I also like those crisp white, slender white petals of the star chickweed and those brilliantly contrasting red stamens.
That was a nice little break. Starting to cloud over some. It said it would start getting cloudy around 4-ish, most of the forecast, so I'd like to make sure I get down there to my campsite, have it all set up before I have to have any rain hit me. Here we go, some more club mosses right amongst the partridge berry. Does make you feel like your own little itty bitty forest, doesn't it?
I love the club moss, shining club moss. I take pictures of it every time I see it. But one of my favorites, though, is this partridge berry. So tiny, so small, but yet so colorful. Now, this one here, the lesser periwinkle, it's invasive weed, but it still is pretty. Now, blue fungus is strange but cool. I love the colorful stamen in the star chickweed and that delicate purple of the phacelia. But this is my favorite phacelia this time, and that's the fringed phacelia. First time I've seen it. I love that fringe.
Finally, we get back down to where we get to parallel a stream. We've gone over one or two small streams, but now we're down low enough, we're starting to parallel them, and it's nice to have that additional music to listen to as we hike along. Okay, I don't know if you can hear it, but off to the left there is Big Creek. It's our campsite 37. And then we should be there in about maybe a half mile less, something like that. Fortunately, when I come out, I will cross over Big Creek and then have a flat hike out. It won't have to be any big elevation gain tomorrow. Should keep it interesting, or at least pleasant. Okay, I think we got to the point where we're about to hit the trail. In fact, if I look down here, I think you can see some people down there. I think that's my campsite 37 that I'm going to come around to. So we'll come on down the trail here a bit and see if we can intersect. We have just come off the low gap and hit Big Creek Trail. Looks like we are headed to our campsite. Oh boy. Looks like we have quite a few trilliums. I think those are trilliums coming up. Well, we've made it here to campsite 37. Once again, the little post with the marker, I can't find it. But I'm a little off the trail. But they've got some really nice sites here. Let me show you the site I picked. As you can see, nice and open, very pleasant. I'm going to pick these two trees. One of these three trees right here, going over to that tree right there. And from there, you can see what my view will be looking out of my hammock when I wake up. That's terrible, isn't it? But I'll put up with it. Nice little campfire, cook area, and some level spaces. I love that. Okay, I'm also going to, right over there you can see where the bear lines are for you to haul up your stuff. That's where the trail is, right over there, just before it starts going uphill. And it will continue on down Big Creek Trail tomorrow. Right now I'm gonna set up my hammock and drink a little water, sit back and relax, and maybe text everybody that I've arrived here safely.
This is the Pocket Boy by Silky. It's a new item for me. It weighs 6.7 or 7.6 ounces. I think 7 point something ounces. But it is worth every single ounce. It cuts like crazy. It makes firewood, acquiring enough, actually feasible in a reasonable amount of time. I will always take that with me. Just look at the stuff I got to cut in about 7 to 10 minutes. All this which would have taken, there's no way I could have gotten stuff chopped up that convenient size. For some reason, the audio did not do very well on this one. I may have had the microphone facing the wrong direction. In any case, I was commenting on what I was going to do. I was mentioning that I got my fire all set up and prepared, everything cut and ready, so quickly that I actually had some time to sit back and relax. So it's kind of nice to have that rather than to be rushed to the last possible second before bedtime. Finally, I was able to take a few moments to sit down, rest, and relax. Kind of cool the aching feet. And just enjoy sights and sounds around me. Okay, it's now about 7:10 and it's starting to get darker. So I think I'm going to go ahead and make my lasagna, see how that turns out. And we've got the stove going here, my good old Fancy Feast stove. As you can see, it's just heating things up. As soon as the pot gets the water warm, the 500 mils of water will pour in the bag and let her sit. And I think I'll start the fire while I'm letting it soak. Isn't it nice what a fire can do for your morale? Boy, that Pocket Boy saw is just fantastic. My word, does it go through that wood. That makes for a nice fire. And as you saw earlier, I got plenty more to keep burning. This was a new one for me. It was I think it's Backpacker's Pantry, this vegetarian lasagna, which is really quite good for a freeze-dried meal. I was very happy with it. And I used that tip or trick that Syntax77 showed in one of his backpacking videos, using that kind of silver surfaced bubble wrap type insulation material and taping it into a pocket so that when you fill it with the hot water, you seal it up and then drop it inside that insulator pocket that weighs next to nothing, and it actually holds the heat much longer and cooks it much better. So really, it was tasting pretty good. I decided to go ahead and enjoy the fire for another hour, 45 minutes. And even then, I didn't begin to use up all the wood. But got in bed, went to sleep, and then called it a night. Once again, I ended up with a low-level audio. I think in this case, it was mostly due to the fact that there were still other people trying to sleep, so I didn't want to disturb them. But it was about 7 in the morning, and I figured it was time to get up, and I was mentioning that it didn't get all that cold, only about 42, and that it was just downright comfortable. And even though I had awakened at 5, I thought a little more sleep probably wasn't a bad idea, but I was ready to get up, pack up, and eat some breakfast. For some reason or other, I have another segment here without any audio. In any case, I think what I was talking about here was the fact that, well, I was getting breakfast all set and ready, and this time I had some additional supplies. I was fortunate enough to have Isaac provide me a Esbit stove, which was fantastic. And since I had a brand new 500 ml titanium pot that nests inside my 750, I could use his stove to heat up my drink while I used my stove to heat up the water for my oatmeal. And that was just such a grand and wonderful thing. Just felt I had to tell everybody. And thanks, Isaac, for the stove. That's cool. I think I like my new breakfast nook here. The view is great. I really did like my new little breakfast nook. And I only had to share it with these guys for a couple of minutes. They were nice guys anyway, so not a problem. There's just something that is not possible to convey. That is, the peace that comes made it possible not only to have a wonderful breakfast, but it was also a great spot for a brief, quick worship or devotional. As far as breakfast goes, I have to admit, I've never had a better location to enjoy my Quaker maple and brown sugar oatmeal. Now, I'm not terribly certain on this. I'm only a couple years back from having spent 25 years on the West Coast, but I think this is either a black-bellied or seal, some type of Desbognathus salamander. And this next one is, I believe, the southern two-line salamander. Beautiful little salamanders. I have another clip here where I had very low audio. I was mentioning that I enjoyed having such a leisurely start to the day, and how nice it was to have 2 stoves to heat the water for both the drink and the food at the same time. Having such quiet and friendly people in the campsite as neighbors was also great. In fact, I had helped one of them the afternoon before that had cut their thumb rather badly. I had some new skin, which is crazy glue kind of stuff, with me in my first aid pack, and I gave it to him to use, and he was able to seal things up and stop the bleeding. Finally, I finished up with my monologue about raving over the Pocket Boy saw by Silky. As you can see, I still had loads of firewood left, even after keeping my fire going for over 2 hours the previous night. I will always carry that with me from now on. In this clip, I mentioned that today's hike, while it will be nearly 6 miles, will have only a minimal change in elevation, and that I will be happy to see my parents, who kindly agreed to come and pick me up and return me to my car at the Cosby Campground. Oh, the wire you see sticking out of my Garmin 66i is a USB that is hooked to my 7 amp hour lithium-ion battery, because for some reason I had not shut down something on it that drained it since the night before, and it was down to 30%.
Okay, leaving campsite 37.
I'm about 30 to 40 yards past the bridge by the campsite. This is where I went the evening before to head up the trail there and get some of the deadfall for firewood. And you can see that's the Shallow Fork Trail. And it's a pretty trail. It's just on the other side of the creek. It parallels that for a while.
So many waterfalls and water features. It's always fun when you're up in the morning and it's dark out. Normally I'm up just before sunrise. This time I was up a little before. Decided to just sleep in and enjoy some. And then got up around 7. So the sun was already up, but down in the This is Walnut, I think it's Walnut Bottom, which is the location, that little hollow in between the mountains where the campsite was. It was still kind of dark there, just some twilight type of effect. But as you looked up, eventually you started to see the mountaintop and ridges start to get some touch of light on the top. It's always fun to watch the inevitable creep in towards where you're at. As you can see, the mountaintops are indeed well lit now that we're after 9 o'clock. Let's see, we're probably about 20 after 9. I forgot to mention, I brought along a little pocket thermometer, and it said about 41. So 40, 42, somewhere in there was probably the low last night. It's amazing what an additional 30 degrees does warmer this time compared to the low on my last camping trip. Much nicer. You can see where we're at now as we left campsite 37, because we came down over the mountain, down and into campsite 37. Now we're hiking out, and instead of going back up, we're going straight out Big Creek. You can see as we're coming out, it's starting to open up a little bit. You can see the mountains spread out to the side, a little more light coming in. Let's see what we get over here. Let's try to look right over here. We do have some coming up here. This is for those who are doing horses on this trail. The Big Creek Trail, of course, is one that allows horses. Some of the trails here in the Smokies don't.
As I hiked on, quickly making progress, I continued to ford streams and to slowly trudge along. Of course, I can't say that without giving a gratuitous slow-mo scene. As the trail continued to parallel the banks of Big Creek, I kept looking for new wildflowers or various birds or animals.
Isn't it nice to have this kind of a scenery always there on your left side or right side as you're hiking along? I so love water features. Nice handy-dandy rest stop for our equestrian friends. I suppose you have to get off the horse and rest for a bit. This would do.
These rhododendron tunnels are probably some of my favorite things about backpacking.
Man, there's this beautiful place where the water was coming down and it really got squeezed together and went down like about a 5 or so foot tumbling waterfall. It's gorgeous. I wanted to film it, but it was off the steep side of the trail, choked with rhododendron. So I took off my pack and everything, went down there with my camera, try and get it anyway. No such luck. There's no place I can get an angle to see it. Those are the ones that hurt a little. I met a few hikers along the way today, about 3 or 4. The nice thing about this part of the Smoky, it's not so crowded. But we're coming up on a bridge, and I see we have some other hikers of a different sort. You know, I think there's still a little more blow-down trail damage to get around. Just got a feeling here. And there. That's the biggest part of my feeling. It is sizable. Get a look on that. Oh, and the horses are having to do that too. Zipping right along, and I almost walked right past this. I heard a roar that got my attention. Well, another spur off the trail that would have just zipped right by had it not been for the roar. You guessed it, it's another waterfall. This one is just really pretty.
At first I thought it might be Midnight Hole Falls, but it doesn't look like the pictures I saw on the web. So I'm not certain about this one. It's pretty.
That is downright pretty. Evidently, the Big Creek Trail is very aptly named. I've been waiting on this one for a while, but finally we found it here. Bear corn.
I believe this is the wild geranium.
There's a spray of color. Everywhere. Oh. Evidently erosion stuff. They're wanting to keep people away from the edge. Avoid that sudden feeling of letdown. Can't see it in the picture. There we go.
Now this one, I know it's some type of ragwort, but I just don't know which one, whether it's golden or small. They're both supposed to be in the area. And for this next one here, this one's some kind of a fleabane. I just don't know which one. At least it sure looks like it. Philadelphia, daisy, eastern, some kind of fleabane.
Okay, yes, and yet another favorite here. You can see this all-time favorites.
This has to be one of my favorites. I do believe it's the dwarf crested iris. Looks a little bit like the dwarf violet iris, but I think it's dwarf crested. Really pretty.
Well, it looks like we're at the end. I think we're getting within sight. In fact, I think I see some cars through the trees, so we are reaching the end of the trail. End of Big Creek Trail at the Big Creek Campground parking at the trailhead. So yeah, we got our sign, we got buildings. As you can see, we are indeed to hike. Okay. No going and coming montage this time. We're just going to head straight on to where they're parked. Yep. That is where we came from 5.2 miles ago. And a few excursions in between here and there. Oh well. Can't hurt.
I was commenting here that I decided to hike on up the road towards the entrance to the park to help save my parents some time.
And here they come, saving them a little distance. Not much, but some.
And so ends another trip to one of the most beautiful places on Earth, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.